Okay, so getting into our panel discussion. First up, we will have Brian Bellman from, so it's a little bit misleading when you read this. He doesn't manage Dundee City, but he is the Dundee City manager for Ride On Scotland. Then we'll have Morten Rynning from CEO and founder of CityQ, who's going to tell us about his new quadricycle. And then Richard Stark, the director of drone technologies, will be talking a little bit about things up in the air. So let's just dive right in. And Brian, if you're there, we will get you started.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Bellman. I'm the operations manager for Ride On in Dundee. So I've been in post for the last 2 months, and my aim over the next 10 minutes is just give you an introduction, understanding on how the e-bike sharing scheme is working and how popular it is, and future plans for the project. So we operate quite a small team in Dundee, a very competent team. We have bike technicians, dock technicians, and obviously their aim is to ensure that the product, as in the e-bikes and the docking stations, are operational at all times, to provide a good form of sustainable transport to Dundee City Council and residents. So the system itself is operational by a docking system, which is obviously connected to the power supply within the street, and the docks themselves do cover various shapes and sizes. So we can have dual platforms or a single linear platform, and we can operate from a 24 station, for example, to maybe a smaller station to suit the environment, maybe down to a station with 12 bikes, etc. Every bike is tracked, so we can track every user, and we can show how popular the service is. A lot of the technology and what we deliver is designed around the commuter, but also the product is very well used by people using it for leisure at the weekend. So we launched in 11th of November 2020 to a reduced size group of users who did the pilot testing of the e-bikes, which went down fantastically well. And we opened up in March 2021 after 10 months of service. We've already achieved 15,000 registrations and users currently, and that is still growing. So, for example, yesterday I attended Freshers Fair in Dundee, and we registered in excess of over 50 users in the last 24 hours, which is fantastic. Very, very, very popular scheme with the student population who are just returning to Dundee. From there, we've completed 19,000 successful trips, and most of the users ride between 5 and 10 kilometres, followed by those who prefer to use the scheme as recreational activity and register between 10 and 20 kilometres. Predominantly, the ones with a higher usage, as in higher kilometres, is the service is very popular at the weekends from Dundee City waterfront to Broughty Ferry, where the customer or the user will dock the bike, see the sights of Broughty Ferry, the charge then stops the scheme, and then they'll return to Dundee at their leisure. 83% of the users rate the experience with maximum punctuation, and the most used service currently is based at Discovery Point. So as you can see from the map, so the stations we currently have is 16, and they are all centralised at the moment within the Dundee city centre, from the waterfront into the city centre itself, accommodating the University of Dundee. And obviously the aim of the project is that it interconnects every society and makes the trip cost effective for the user. And this weekend, for example, we've got another station going live at the waterfront, and the ambition over the next sort of 6 to 7 months is that there will be 30 stations within Dundee, and they will be being placed in more populated areas, as in housing schemes, etc. There's a good example of the stations we have in place. So quite a popular station in South Tay Street, that's very central to Dundee. As I mentioned before, that's quite a small station. We accommodate about 6 bikes there daily, and the usage of that station has become very popular since the students returned. This station here in Euclid's Crescent, again, very popular, really designed around the commuter, very central to Dundee and local businesses. And this one at the Dundee Science Centre has literally just been in operation in the last week. We also do go very recreational, so Baxter Park, this station here is a 24 dock station. So we have 12 bikes at that station at any one time. And all these stations are operationally kept effective by a member of the team who will rebalance and check the service of the bikes daily. And he ensures that each station will operate at 50%, therefore providing the user the capacity to return a bike to the docking station without any concerns. Okay, so Ride On Scotland delivers a 360 mobility platform, and Ride On offers a complete mobility server as a provider, operator, and also mobility platform. We define ourselves as mobility technologists due to our aim to offer 360 services fully suitable to users, public administration, and private companies. In addition to offering solutions adapted to our target, we provide global access to the mobility system, online and offline solutions, and integrated payment. So what that is really saying is all of our users download an application, they pay for it via the phone and obviously through the banking system. They will turn up to a docking system, present the phone into the docking system and the bike, and that will release the bike. Once the user has finished their trip and they put the bike completely back into the docking station, that then closes the trip for the user. Excuse me. Ride On offers the best last mile solution adaptable to actual urban mobility environment. We estimate trips around 2.7 miles, and thanks to our high quality system, we expect to have 7% of our fleet still operational within 5 years, without the necessity to replace them due to vandalism and improper use. And so that really works hand in hand with the technicians we have. They are very good at keeping the product as in the bike serviceable at all times, and the rebalancer checking the bikes daily. Ride On offers security typical from a dock system and the freedom related to the dockless operators. Urban planification. Most operators are having problems with public administration due to aggressive entrance to the cities without considering urban planification and nor placing the individual in the centre of all mobility solutions. Ride On allies with local authorities and guarantees long-term stability, and also provides an additional service to other operators, giving them the possibility to keep operating in the cities. Ready for future challenges, Ride On has diversified solutions in order to stand out from other operators and mobility platforms, and the company is ready to handle successfully the challenges in the mobility industry, production increase, expansion to new cities to create more sustainable urban areas, and public-private collaboration and dependence on private vehicles. So in this slideshow here, the benefits for our partners. Ride On is a company developing sustainable mobility solutions that generate a zero impact on the environment. We contribute to reducing pollution in the city and commit to projects providing improved quality standards. Shared mobility is currently booming in urban centres of major cities. Ride On is a pioneer in implementing shared mobility systems due to its ability to customize the use of shared vehicles. Shared vehicles and tools that interact with the user have become advertising media with a high and consistent impact. Okay, that ends my presentation. If you have any questions, please follow obviously Dan's guidance for, later, and I will obviously answer any questions I can to the best of my ability. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I definitely have quite a few questions, but I might, we'll save them till everyone else has presented. If you do have questions, throw them in the chat, as we mentioned. Also, when you're putting things in the chat, make sure it's to who you want it to go to. I know that by default, it actually isn't set to everyone, so we want to make sure that your contact details and introductions and whatnot go to everyone in the event. Next up, we have CityQ, Morten Rynning. Morten, if you're there, it'd be, if you pull up your presentation, looking forward to hearing about your recent, I think you've had some investment and some success at some European events. So looking forward to hearing about a little bit more.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you how we look upon how would future city being able to change from congestants to more like car-free areas, or changing towards car traffic to cycling. So here you can see what our concept is looking like and where we are at. We're starting to manufacturing very soon. We are enabling the green shift from car traffic to cycling, and we're innovating e-bikes. We're trying to make the next generation smart e-bikes with car-like comfort, safety, and technology. So, I mean, I'm also involved in e-bike sharing, and I think it's a fantastic way of enabling e-bikes to everybody. But in order to actually change from car traffic to cycling, we have to look upon what kind of vehicle is available and what kind of transportation offering can we do. And what we try to achieve with this platform is how can we actually enable the different kind of needs that is required. And one of the segments we're going to see a lot of growth in for cities that embrace reducing congestion and car traffic is the family and cargo bikes. So imagine getting your delivery bike, cargo bike, with something like this. You might have a two-wheeler cargo bikes, but you will soon realize that it's kind of hard to get enough cargo transported and not enough of safety. So what we're doing, even though it looks a little bit more like a car, it's as small as a bike and has the ability to bring up to 1 cubic. I'll get more into that. The other is personal transport. So if you're able to replace your car with a bike like this, it enables for urban citizens that has less access to car parking and even don't have a driving license to actually live a lifestyle of cycling. So we know that about 60% of those mostly cycling will leave their cycling or bike at home if it's bad weather. That's why we're creating this kind of option. As you can see, if you're cycling yourself or you're ordering cargo delivery, this kind of bad weather is not a good situation for cycling. And what we're seeing now is this kind of interest to go into cargo bikes for enabling cities to bring more cycling into the cities. They struggle partly with safety, partly with lack of ability of how much to transport, and also part of understanding how does actually 3- and 4-wheeler bikes fit into the cities and how should they embrace that. And what Cycling Industry Europe has estimated is that with the green shift and the interest for actually going without a car, there's been a 60% annual growth the last 2 years within cargo and family bikes, and they're expecting to reach 2 million units annual sales by 2030, representing about 6% of all bikes sold to be cargo and family bikes. So this is coming. It's more a question about how do cities prepare for it? How do they learn to do it? It's a lot of good opportunity, but it also has to understand how to benefit from it and how to prepare for it. Like when I'm holding speeches, it's very often a question about what's happening with infrastructure and legislation. And we're seeing that the expectation of infrastructure to change quickly is not possible. You can't build bike lanes all over the city and inner city and expect that to drive increase in cycling. Oslo, where I'm coming from, has spent a lot of money last 5 years on increasing bike lanes. That's not enough to change it. You have to look for how can you use policy, such as reducing speed limits in inner cities, take away parking spots, and actually doing streets more suitable for combined transport. So the challenge is, how do you handle congestion and pollution? And the answer is, you need to do some policy changes if you want really to do changes. Just wishing it doesn't work. And we're seeing very successful parts happening now in Germany, but also Paris and even London. The interesting thing is, like when it comes to parcel transport or city delivery, 94% of parcel is less than 5 kilo. And most of them it's very suitable to be brought by cargo bikes, at least when you're talking about 3 to 4 wheeler cargo bikes. And you can reduce a credible amount of both CO2 emission as well as energy consumption into this one. So you can actually achieve 90% more sustainable transport by going from vans to bikes. So why does it do like that? If you do a van, you can see here CO2 emission and also cost of it. You reduce the kilo you're transporting on a car being like 1 to 3 tons into a bicycle weighing about 75 to 85 kilo. That helps with CO2 emission reduction of 90% and also energy consumption, which also reduces the need for charging. And as we know, going to electric vans is not really making the big difference of CO2 emission, but it creates a lot of struggle when it comes to charging. So you get both of it when it goes to last mile in inner cities. You're also reducing reduction in parking space with 75%. This is a very small footprint, not very much more than a bike. And also it enables it to go in places so we can go door to door, making it more efficient in congested areas. And it also has a significant health effect of cycling versus driving. And it also introduces the ability to have new type of drivers. They don't need a driving license. They don't need to be physically extended. They are out utilizing fresh air and get a good health impact. So what we are all about is, how can you downsize car to a bike and enabling the green shifts? As I already said, it's reducing the bottleneck of batteries and reducing the charging challenge, which is all good for the environment. So what we made is not a bike, it's a platform for multiple type of vehicles, but with a family version and a cargo version enabling this one. So here you can see it has the rain protection, it has the weather protection, which I would guess in Dundee and Scotland and also UK is quite a struggle. I'm coming from Norway. I calculated bad weather, 239 days with rain or frost. It's not really encouraging when you want to go cycling. So we try to make it flexible, meaning that you can remove the cargo part, try to do a foldable rear seat to fit 2 children, making it work for families. Not that you need to have one bike for both, but we're trying to do the manufacturing of this one in a way that it's easy modularity to make it work in both models. It has 2 strong batteries going 150 kilometers, so it's very flexible for it. And as I said, 7 centimeters go into doors, go into bike parking. Technology-wise, it's amazing. I think as was mentioned in the previous part, what is happening with micromobility is actually becoming as advanced as a Tesla or a high advanced electric vehicles. You have traceability, you have fleet management system, you even have over-the-air upgrades. So similar to your smartphone, modern micromobility will be able to upload, remotely diagnose the vehicle and even upload and change functionality and repair. This is a totally different what you would get from any type of automotive, unless you're talking Tesla, which is the only one offering OTA these days. So in addition to that, we are taking away all the hassle with mechanical chain and gears, implementing what we call cycling by software, meaning that there's a generator generating the energy directly to the battery instead of a chain, taking away a lot of mechanical hassle. So here you can see where we are. We have made 3 generations of prototyping, working now with customers in several areas and downsizing as much as possible. Here's a customer in Tallinn, which is using it for mobile car wash. Here's customers that is about to launch it in Scandinavia for facility management. So plumbers and electricians can go independently into inner cities and park anywhere and be more efficient and reducing the number of vans that normally would be represented by these kind of areas for construction sites and repairing offices. And there's quite a lot of number of vans being used for construction, electricians and plumbers. So what we're fitting in here is up to 1 cubic with a cargo bike where you can fit quite a lot. This is from Upsteam doing mobile car care. And you can get this for cost of euro 7,800 or rental about 250 to 300 euro a month with a down payment. And as I said, it's less than 80 kilo and has batteries 250 kilometer range. So what we're seeing now, there's a lot of opportunities in a modular design that we want to do building for different kind of purposes and customers. And what we're now trying to achieve is, as we're launching next year with 300 to 500 CityQs being manufactured, then 3,000 next year after. What we're looking for now is cities where they want to test it. We have already 1,000 signed up to want to buy, including a lot of B2B, but we want cities where we can put in the rental of it and testing of it for different kind of users. So both for private users as well as B2B. And we are in process of selecting a few cities where we'll do that with the aim of doing a 2 to 3 year test and pilot, run some private partners as well, and seeing how we can see the ability to run KPIs where we measure how much car trips it can replace or how much CO2 emission we can do. So this is what we're looking for, and think it would be fantastic if there's opportunities in Scotland or as part of areas in UK. We already are in discussions with some London companies regarding this. So that's probably summarizing it. We're doing pre-orders for 2022, but we also have innovation partners coming in and looking for new innovation partners in this meeting. So that's about what I wanted to tell.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Morten. Yeah, again, I have a lot of questions, and I'm spotting Moira Forsyth filling the chat with questions there as well. This is actually something I'm looking at myself, about to move house, and all of a sudden I'm looking at sort of new modes of transportation. And as you mentioned, with the Dundee winter weather in mind, you know, the electric scooters and bikes, just, yeah, something a little bit more coverage definitely would be good. But yeah, we'll dig into those questions a little bit when we get to the Q&A section after our next speaker, which is Richard Stark. Are you there? And welcome on board. Looking forward to hearing about a little bit of an aviation angle on new mobility.
Yeah, okay, I think we've got it here. Okay, I need to. There we go. Oh, it's the wrong way, sorry. The whole presentation before I've started. Good. Well, thanks Dan for inviting us along. So I'm one of the directors in a company. Oh, let's start with you. Sorry, I'm awful confused as to what's happening here. And can I just check? Is that what it's meant to look like? Yeah.
Sorry, it's not full screen, but we can see a slide deck.
Yeah, I'll just get. There we go. That's it. Sorry, I'm not sure if there's something popped up
good.
Like that. So I'm Richard Stark. I'm one of the directors in DTLX. We're a drone solutions company based in northeast of Scotland. So our focus is around about Montrose, but as a Scottish company. So we're effectively what we call ourselves as a consultancy plus. The drone industry is relatively young, and therefore we operate as consultants, providing advice with an aim to building those into projects, ultimately operations that will come in the future. We are Scotland based, but we look abroad. And interestingly enough, we have through our network, we're about to have a sister company establish itself in Australia. Australia, like Scotland, a kind of area of wide open rural spaces, and therefore ideal for early drone use cases. The opportunity around drones is really, if you think of things, making things safer, greener, and more cost effective in terms of any of your operations that you do. Obviously, generally you'd be unmanned, so you take people out of the equation, or you reduce the number of people involved in the equation. You put it through software and computers, therefore removing human error. Most drones are powered by electricity, therefore, as long as in Scotland, obviously, lots of renewable energy, and therefore should make it greener than most fossil fuels, and more cost effective because you're removing in one instance, you're removing the requirement necessarily to put humans or indeed lots of humans into transport, and therefore you don't have to design them to quite the same specification and maintain them the same specification as you would a manned transport. The key opportunity here is that the drones, you all know they've been around for a while, but just now almost everything is restricted by the regulations to within visual line of sight. So as far as you can see, out to a maximum about 500 meters. That's kind of the limits. The industry has advanced. There's the knowledge or the expectation in terms of what drones will do with the regulator, and the idea is that we then move to beyond visual line of sight, so beyond 500 meters. And once you fly beyond 500 meters, you have the opportunity to do drone deliveries and long-range inspections and all those kind of things that we all imagined would happen 10 years ago, but haven't yet. So effectively, the technology thereabouts exists. It's the regulatory environment that's constraining. And as a kind of finger in the air, reasonably educated guess would be 2025 will be the time that this will become more widespread or increasingly widespread. And the emergence of drone technologies will create new industries whilst enhancing existing ones. So our approach and our reason that we're here is that we wish to be early adopters. We work in part, it's a very complicated kind of ecosystem, both from airspace and technology and operating, and there's a lot of different people involved. So we work in partnerships to create drone solutions. So we integrate what's already there into a solution that will work. And our key thing, and the key thing in the industry just now, is to seek lower risk use cases. Yeah, that demonstrates early commercial operations, allowing things to scale. And the best places for that are the rural environment and the offshore environment. So therefore, Scotland is ideally suited. So there's some big numbers in terms of drones in general. You can see most of the things there are discussed in the billions. On the right-hand side, the blue one there, it says 74 billion by 2035. That is the estimate from the UK government as to the size of the drone industry within the next 10 plus years within the UK alone. And when you look beyond the UK, the numbers often go to trillions, and you can see that. So regardless of what your interest is, there is a pretty good opportunity there. The bottom graph on the bottom there just shows you that we're only kind of 10% through the journey in terms of where the whole drone industry ultimately ends up. And so what kind of stuff are we talking about? Well, behind the scenes, there's all the airspace, all that kind of stuff, and the kind of control systems to control it, but that's all a bit boring to put in a presentation. So I've kind of divided it up to what you would actually see. So you see drone ports. There's a couple of things. There's that top left. That's going to be built in Coventry next year. But that company have an agreement in place with Hyundai, who are currently putting over $1 billion into drone ports and what's called eVTOL. The Skyports have just agreed to lease 15 sites across London. And then you look at a company at the bottom there, Lilium, who have plans for a North German network, linking all the regional cities together. So kind of like your like the trains do just now, you'll be linked by little sort of 5-seater planes. In the middle there is the unmanned drones. So these are the kind of logistics looking ones. in some ways. So the top one there, Skyports, if you've seen on the internet, flying Oban to Mull and over in Argyll. They flew 14,000 kilometres beyond visual line of sight for the NHS last year. They're actually coming to Angus probably early next year to do something similar with us. So that'll be really exciting. There's a lot of stuff in the military in terms of logistics. Obviously, the military spend a lot of money, therefore helping the industry along with the technology and the operations. And then finally there at the bottom, so you have a fixed wing drone there. It's Flylogics. They're currently doing commercial operations for the oil and gas companies offshore, sampling offshore methane. On the right hand side, we have all the flying taxis. So there's you can see the kind of experience that there is. 15,000 flights by EHang. Lilium, they've just pre-ordered over 220 into Brazil, trying to alleviate congestion at this point for the super rich, but ultimately the aim is to get that down to kind of a $1 a mile, kind of like an Uber, I suppose. And then at the bottom, we've got a British company there, so that's Vertical Aerospace. They just last week agreed a sort of MOU with Bristow's for like 50 aircraft, and they've got a pre-order with Virgin for 150. So it's all coming, all these things about people and everything else. So what does it look like? There's lots of sort of stuff. I've kind of shown you some of the physical stuff, the things you could kind of knock with your fist and make a noise. But you need to remember that the drone's just one part of this wider network. And it's also, you can kind of stick whatever you want onto a drone. The drone is just the vehicle. So it's cameras, it's sensors, it's batteries, it's hydrogen, it's communication, it's all those kind of things, yeah, all those kind of systems from all the main players, all the people who are involved in kind of comms for be that offshore, onshore, for aviation and everything else. And then the software elements is a whole industry. So it's kind of taken probably 70 years, 100 years for the UK's airspace or for the world's airspace to be created. And in effect, what we're trying to do is replicate that in about sort of 5 to 10 years. So everything from pilot testing to drone testing, certification, maintenance, all the other stuff there, cybersecurity now, sort of these things are hugely kind of technical and therefore vulnerable. So all those kind of things, and loads of legal and regulatory issues as well to go through. So you can see that there's more to it than just the drone there. There's a huge amount of opportunity, and that's where those billions and trillions, those numbers come from. So our business model as DTLX, we're kind of because of the journey that the industry is going in, we operate as a consultancy initially. So we find people with problems or looking to expand. We build projects with them. Once we demonstrate the projects, we'll move to then revenue generating, sales and profits. And then obviously there's a whole lot of other opportunities out there. So currently we kind of we're building a drone port in Montrose that will come onto it, and we're looking at a heavy lift tethered drone. And then from there, we then move to operations of them to generate as a sort of operating model. And then there's all sorts of other things that come from that, things like drone swarms and air traffic control and all sorts of other stuff that we may or may not get involved in the future. So the first of the two projects I've got here is the first is the MERCURY Drone Ports Programme. This is part of the Bay Cities deal. We work with Angus, and as part of the MERCURY programs, they're part of it. We have a 4-stage project where we aim to do beyond visual line of sight flight from in and around Angus. So on the left-hand side, you can see some corridors that we're planning, where we're building. So these are airspace corridors, segregated. We'll be delivering medical samples into Dundee. First time, pretty much, anywhere in the UK, at least, that drones will fly from the rural environment into a city. So that will be in the news, hopefully next year. We're working with Skyports and Drone Prep, two of the leaders there, but we should attract quite a lot of attention, hopefully, that. And the aim is ultimately to move to the things on the right-hand side. So that's a kind of a whole network around about Angus, onshore and offshore. So the commercial opportunities offshore, where there's too many other people around, will give us early commercial operations. And then if you look on the bottom right, the aim ultimately is to build a centre of excellence for drone technology. That's not what exists in Montrose just now. That's something similar that exists in Belgium. And we aim to do something like that, where we become a hub for the development of drone technology within Scotland. So if you've got a question in Scotland, or you've got a project or anything that you want to know, you would phone us up, and we would be able to help you and provide you office space and partners and all that kind of other stuff. This is a kind of, I tweet around about Dundee. We're looking at projects to do with the blind taxis, so the AAVs. We're a strategic partner for EHang. They're the world's leader, or one of the world's leaders in passenger transport and drones, autonomous passenger transport. They've done over 15,000 flights, and you can see they flew in Estonia 2 weeks ago. They've got the permissions in Australia, and they've flown in the Netherlands as well, and another 10 countries around the world. You know, they've got a whole lot of agreements in Spain, so they'll be there as well. And our aim is to run a demonstration, effectively following what they do elsewhere. Just replicate that, build a business case, and there's the kind of details within it. It all ties into smart cities with the aim that potentially, you know, if we sell enough of these, if we prove it and we sell enough of these things, we'd start manufacturing. So that's the end of it there. So that's us. That's a few of us on the right hand side, and a picture of our drone shows that we sell on the left, just as a quick plug. But no, we're here. If you've got any questions on drones or any solutions that you do, projects or anything interesting you want to say, then there's my details, and they're also in the chat as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Richard. Now we'll just bring back the other speakers as well, Morten and Brian, if you just want to unmute yourselves and add video if you want, so we can answer a few questions here. I know, Brian, I think you answered one in the chat. It did go to, just want to make sure it actually goes to everyone here. And I had the same question myself, you know, considering the recent, we had a bike company pull out of Edinburgh, I believe, due to vandalism and the destruction of the vehicles. It sounds like the bikes, the business in Edinburgh just became unfeasible. What is the impact in Dundee? Is there much vandalism and destruction from that perspective, or are we just treating the bikes well?
I think it's a mixture of a few things, Dan. I think the docking station itself, the bike is very secure in the station. So once that user ends the trip, the trip's closed, the bike's secure, which is the first thing. I think also the docking stations are very strategically placed. They're very much in the public eye. And also, I think the community in Dundee have taken to the project really well. The only slight little bit of vandalism we get is probably not intentional, it's just the rear light sometimes becomes damaged. Apart from that, we have no damage really on a daily basis. And I think also, which contributes to that, is we have a rebalancer out daily. So he goes around every single docking station we have and checks the bikes physically. And on top of that, we have our application allows us to see the length of time that a bike's been on a trip. So therefore, I would get a notification if a bike had been on a trip for more than 4 hours. That's obviously alerting to you quite at an early stage that there might be a concern with that bike, and we can track it to its exact location.
Great. I mean, I guess if there's less vandalism, it means that the entire system is going to be more sustainable for an extended period of time there. I had a few other questions around, you talked about the expansion of the network. You know, there's more. I noticed that all the locations are sort of along the water, down the bottom of the hills, basically in Dundee. How do we get some up the top of the hill, the bike stations? Is that just a demand or a funding question as to where the locations end up being installed? What are the motivating factors around that?
So the intention is to go out further than obviously the locations at the moment. So we're looking at areas such as pollution areas. So Lockheed Road is very hilly, for example. And the next phase will really interconnect the existing docking stations into local community housing schemes. So we've got 5 currently located around council buildings in Dundee, and they should be live in the next sort of 4 to 5 weeks. It's just a case of getting the power out from the building to the docking station, which is in place, and then they're ready to go. And really interconnecting the local community housing areas of Dundee, and then allowing people to commute in and out of the city centre. Obviously, the furthest one away we have, I did allude to it in my presentation, is Broughty Ferry, which is about obviously 13 miles from Dundee. Very popular route, but mainly used around sort of people using it for leisure at the weekends.
Yep. Are you seeing any demand from over the bridge in Fife?
There is potential there. I think if we could interconnect Fife and Dundee, I think that would be providing an excellent service. Obviously, the Fife coastal route, you could go from Dundee across the Tay Bridge, Fife coastal route. I think that would provide an excellent service, interconnecting both towns and cities.
Yeah, I guess the whole concept of an electric bike allows people to go a little bit further than they normally would. So that'd be definitely really interesting. Yeah, I didn't see any other particular questions pop up, but Morten, I guess actually one came up for you around the manufacturing. I know there was actually a webinar on yesterday hosted by Scottish Enterprise talking about the challenges around manufacturing right now. You're not quite at that stage just yet, but I guess give us an idea of what your plans are. And well, I think the question was specifically was around, let's hope you're doing it in Scotland, but
yeah, I mean, I'm happy to look into Scotland as an option, but obviously we're starting first of all from where there is the market and where is the ecosystem for it. And to be blunt about it, 80% of the market currently is in Germany. It's an extremely surge in the German market for cargo bikes and family bikes. So we are establishing with a CTO and a development team there. But having said that, we definitely see UK and Scotland as interesting. I'd say that the cargo bike market and family bikes is much less mature. It hasn't been looked into that much, but we're definitely seeing an interest now in UK, and I will be really glad to see that happening in Scotland as well. And as I said in the question there, it's a local assembly, potentially a distributed, so it's possible. Challenging, as mentioned, supply chains is really challenging with bike these days. So anyone making bikes knows that quite a lot of the bike suppliers are slow on actually enabling capability. But we're looking also automotive parts, which is a little bit less strangled.
Great. And I seem to recall you did sort of a crowdsourcing campaign, which was quite successful. Is that right? I wonder if you could tell us about that, because I know for some people, crowdsourcing is a bit of a crowdfunding, sorry, is a bit of a dark art sometimes. So
yeah,
it'd be good to hear a little about your experience.
I'd say it is. I mean, we were doing Crowdcube, which is UK platform, and it took a while getting it right. We had this kind of non-EIS part, which is really important in the UK, and Crowdcube is very much UK. I'd say it's a good platform like Cedar. It takes a while to build it. You have to be very engaged in social media, etc. We went only looking for 200K, went 20% above. What is kind of the taking a lot of part? You need to have like more than 50% pre-funded before you get launching. You have to keep the momentum, and as soon as it kicks the 100%, that's when it really kicks off. So getting a good start and keep going, it's not a quick fix, but we're quite happy with getting there, and it was a good start. Now we're looking for more funding with more like VCs and more volume going into manufacturing. It's bigger money, but it was really helpful.
So what is I guess you touched on sort of when and where we might see your vehicles. I guess, what does that timeline currently look like? You know, you mentioned you're looking for cities and other locations. You already had some potential, customer orders and things. Is there a kind of a funding opportunity you need to go through first, or you're just sort of working towards manufacturing now and you'll have hundreds, if not thousands, of bikes available over the next, 2 years or to 12 months or 2 years?
Yeah, our ambition, so our numbers we're going to make is close to 200,000 in 8 years and annually. So we're talking big numbers going forward, but we're starting about 400 to 500 in the 6 months after starting production. Having said that, you're probably going to see CityQ in COP26 in Glasgow, and I think it's planned to see if it can come to Dundee in the same week as well. But there's some of the others taking care of the logistics, but that's the goal. And right now it's with some partners in Germany preparing the new technology where this chainless system is being implemented by vendors of us. So yeah, that's the idea. Still exciting to see how we can make it presented in Glasgow.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Of course, I'd forgotten you went through the MSIP accelerator, so hopefully that was a good beneficial experience.
Absolutely.
Was I going to touch on? Yeah, I mean, you talked about the infrastructure in the cities and the regulations and whatnot. I'm just wondering, how is your vehicle is actually regulated as a bike? Because it looks a lot like a car, and I mean, I'm assuming you're not going to be on the footpath. You'll actually be on the roadway riding these things. They seem to be a little bit large for your average pedestrian walkway.
Yeah, and then this is a little bit about what is the perception and what is legislation and what is cities looking at. And I think city planning is kind of maturing quickly. Cities looking for how to decongestion the cities. That is where we're seeing if cities is not doing that, then we don't look at cities. It's only the cities that really want to have a policy of using it. It fits into bike lanes, it fits into all of it. And we're seeing it shift in most cities where cargo bikes and bikes are on the same path. But having said that, I think that what we're going to see is you don't make small bike lanes and think you fixed removing car traffic. If you think that the streets are all inclusive for cars, you're not going to get there. So I think we have a lot of discussions with cities, and I think that what's happening in like Germany now, where their policy is to bring down car speed limitation toward 30 kilometers in inner cities, that's going to do a big change. So I think we're definitely seeing city policies as an important thing where we think it fits.
Okay, fantastic. I didn't see any other questions come in at all. I just wanted to circle back to your ask. As you mentioned, you're looking for cities to basically start trialing and deploying the pilot bikes that you currently have. Is that right? We're not. So that's an immediate request. We don't have to wait for you to start manufacturing.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll get in touch with Moriah Foresight regarding that, and we're definitely interested in discuss.
Fantastic, great. So I guess, Richard, you are next on the list. Circling back, well, I'm looking forward to the flying taxis. So that's really exciting. I guess I didn't realize how advanced that was and how real it is. As you said, the limiting factor is probably more around the regulations and the ability to be allowed to do it rather than the technology itself. Do you feel that there's going to be some limitations around people willing to jump in those vehicles? There's people hesitant to get in autonomous ground vehicles, let alone one flying in the air. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, well, that's one of the obvious kind of problems, but not everyone is going to be nervous to get in one of these. And if you look at where they're planning, particularly in China, they're looking to start reasonably quick, like this year. They're looking well, last year they did initial kind of public flights, and they're looking to kind of further that this year. Dubai, I think, is next year. Singapore the year after. Then the US, some of the big cities there are looking at that. So LA, so the kind of big use case is LAX into the center of LA. So once you get, these are places that British people go, and even people from sort of Angus and Dundee go there on their holidays. Before you know it, over the next 3 or 4 years, there will be people around the people you'll know who will have been in these things. So that's the first way. So it kind of works its way in there. The second one that we kind of look at is the commercial operations. So if you take a helicopter, so helicopters to offshore platforms or wind farms, a helicopter offshore oil gas platforms with 22 people in it. It's the most dangerous thing you can do. So take a bag of crisps to an oil and gas platform, you stand a 1 in 400,000 chance of dying. So we need to kind of reduce that. With a flying taxi, one person in, it reduces your risk assessment, all that kind of stuff. So firstly, there's the kind of elsewhere. These things are going to become more routine, so people become they become more sort of comfortable with it. The second one is that if you look at the commercial use cases first, you can demonstrate that, and that's a wee bit different to the public, because you obviously, you're an employee, the company will do its own health and safety assessment before they put you on it. So that's the kind of way that I think people will get involved in. The third one, I had an interesting conversation with someone this morning who's actually looking at one of these, probably in Scotland, and what they were what they were saying is that actually those early ones, when you look at people like Vertical Aerospace in the UK, but then also ones such as Lilium or Joby Innovation, which is not it's an American company, not a Scottish company, obviously, with its name, but those have had like billions of dollars of VC capital into them, and they don't look a million miles off what an airplane looks like. So therefore, they're kind of, you know, getting into it. Yes, maybe not everyone wants to get into it, but increasingly, if you're going to get in an airplane, you'd probably be more content to get in there. And the early, although these are all designed for autonomy, to just you quickly get in, you don't need a pilot. They'll be flown off well, not your computer, but someone's computer. Like the early use cases, generally they're looking at putting pilots into them. I mean, the pilot won't necessarily have control of everything, but he'll be able to boost or stop and go around. So, you know, those are there's very much a kind of societal acceptance, but that actually is working that is in the background. And in the UK, we're a step behind everyone. You know, we're kind of one step behind. So effectively, should be reasonably comfortable to at least get enough people in to make money.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're suggesting people in the UK are a little bit risk averse when it comes to these new and exciting things compared to the rest of the world.
Well, I don't know. It's just the opportunity. Once you see it, then you're wanting it. So I mean, Volocopter, they're one of the kind of leaders. Last year they released a kind of pre-sale flights. You could do, it was $500. You can go on some of the first flights, wherever they are in the world. You buy your ticket just now as a kind of sales pitch, but they sold out in about 2 days. So I mean, it's not that some of you know, your granny might be nervous, but as long as there's enough people who are not nervous, then you know it should. You know, these are all. If you're a helicopter, it's about 100 times safer in terms of the basic risk assessment. So getting a helicopter, it should be more safe to get one of these.
Great. So just quickly, I mean, as far as Scotland goes, you mentioned a few different sort of examples and use cases, but you know, where do you think the really strong ones are? Is it sort of supplying those oil and gas platforms and the offshore wind? You know, I've heard, you know, a million times the healthcare and medical type applications. Where do you think is that one that's going to be really impactful in Scotland from a drone perspective?
So I think in Scotland, the beauty is Scotland is a rural. It's obviously a relatively rural country, and what that means is that there's not that many people to annoy, not that many people to feel they're going to be hit, and the airspace isn't hugely busy, although it's obviously not devoid of aircraft. But if you compare it to the south of England, we're a very different place. And what that means is that early use cases are you know, to actually, you know, whether we will have the biggest drone industry in the world in the future, probably not. We're a country of 5 million people, but actually those early use cases, Scotland's a great place for. And the places just now, because of it's still, the actual manufacture of drones is still a kind of cottage industry. So there's smallish people building it. You can see with the kind of levels of investment we're talking about, it's changing, but it's still like that. So the costs of the vehicles are high. Once you develop the use cases, so say the NHS or something that is not necessarily cost dependent, but time dependent, yeah, that allows you to move from kind of cottage industry to mass manufacture. Once you get to there, the capital costs to enter the market come down, and that then allows the kind of wider industry to scale. So the early use cases are probably things for, firstly for things like the NHS, secondly for like long-range infrastructure inspection. So any of those kind of things. If you're looking at like flying taxis, you know, I like the idea of like sort of sports and kind of like sort of events with large sort of corporate bits to them. You know, people work, say if you go into the 5 Nations and you're from a sort of massive sort of company somewhere, you might have done exactly the same thing in Dubai 3 weeks ago. So, you know, it's kind of, you can add those things in at the high cost until you get the mass manufacture and driving the cost down. And ultimately, the aim of all these companies is to make flying the same cost as an Uber. That's what they aim for, and that they all have their business models that, you know, some of them are a bit aggressive, you know, in the mid 2020s, they're down at that. Late 2020s, and other ones put it at like 2040. But you know, you can see there's a mark somewhere within there's a sweet spot that the market tips from small and expensive to wide and cheap.
Great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand that the use cases vary by location. Having worked previously in Nevada in the desert, their first use case for drones was cloud seeding to make it rain. So that was their kind of priority area. There is a question in the chat specifically as well around beyond the line of sight issue. What are the main regulatory challenges for drones in the UK?
Well, that, I mean, the beyond visual line of sight is the challenge, yeah, and it includes all sorts of stuff. So, well, not all, basically to be able to fly. Just now, the aircraft, every aircraft that flies beyond visual line of sight effectively has a pilot on board. So the fail-safe is a human that goes left, right, up, down, stop, whatever it's doing, and what you need to do is replace that. So that's the struggle. So you need to know what's out there. You need to have a full airspace picture. You need to be able to see everything, and the drones then need to be able to detect whatever they see in front of them and then avoid them. So that's the technical hurdle. Most of those things have been thereabouts addressed. Yeah, what you don't have is the evidence base that allows the regulator to sign it off. And there's a number of things in there, but ultimately, the chap at the CA who signs this off is liable for it. So it's one man at the CA who signs it off is liable. So he's always going to be risk averse because he's no different to you or I. He has a house, a mortgage, a wife, and everything else. And if one of these things goes wrong, it's that individual who ultimately is responsible. So you can see you need aviation is a very, very safe industry. If you look at how aircraft are much safer than your car or any of that kind of stuff. And that's the level, the entry level for this is very high. You know, the hurdles to get over it are risk averse, which is good for everyone going in it. And so you can see it's really a case of like demonstrating enough times that you can do this safely. And just jumping back to our drone ports project in Angus, that's not really, it's aimed to be a trials location where you come and trial the technology, but actually what we're looking to do is a regional scale trials area that allows industry to scale. That's really what we're looking at. It's to allow you to scale, which allows people to bring them the commercial use cases in that mean that rather than just doing 2 flights a week, there's people doing 20 flights a day. And once you've done that, and then all the sort of issues and the operating models and all that kind of stuff and the safety things will be ironed out. That's the plan anyway.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, it's a brave new world out there, so looking forward to it.